Hello, dear students. Hope you are all preparing well for the exam. So let's take a look at Life of Samuel Johnson by James Boswell. James Boswell is a biographer of Dr. Johnson and is famous for this biography, Life of Samuel Johnson. So the extract that we are supposed to learn is it talks about a few incidents in the life of Samuel Johnson towards the end of his completion of this, when he was about to complete his dictionary, a few events before the publication of the dictionary. So he begins by giving an account, this particular extract. He begins this extract with an account of Dr. Johnson's encounter with Lord Chesterfield. We'll just see the main points, the main incidents that are dealt in this particular extract. The first incident that James Boswell talks about is one occasion when Dr. Johnson dedicated the plan of the dictionary, 10 years before this completion of the dictionary. He wrote the plan of the dictionary and dedicated to this Lord Chesterfield. So this man was very rich and was a patron. So this Samuel Johnson thought that this man would help him financially to throughout this work. But there was one incident which made him so angry. So one fine day, this Samuel Johnson went to see this Lord Chesterfield, and he was made to wait in the lounge. No, he was made to wait so long. So he didn't know who was inside the chamber talking to this Lord Chesterfield. But after a long time, out came this writer, Collie Sibber, now the writer of that age. And Dr. Johnson was offended. He was he got so angry that because he was made to wait for this writer Collie Sibber, and he walked away from that house, from that place angrily, never to return. And he didn't get the patronage of this rich man, Lord Chesterfield. And throughout these 10 years, he was working so hard in poverty. There were nobody to encourage him. And towards the end of, or towards the last part, he redoubled his efforts to complete it, because he knew that he's about to finish it, and he redoubled with a redoubled vigor, like a seaman who sees the shore. He with a doubled effort, he comes to the uh, he doubles his effort. Likewise, Samuel Johnson also doubled his effort, and he finally completed this dictionary, and it was about to be printed, published. And at that point of time, there is a next incident which is dealt in detail. That is, towards the end of this, towards the eve of the publication of this dictionary, this Lord Chesterfield, he thought that this dictionary would be dedicated to him, and he praised this dictionary in the tabloid The World. He wrote 2 papers in this quarterly, The World, recommending Dr. Johnson's work. So the next thing that he talks about is about these 2 letters in praise of the dictionary. So you need to know about this as well. How does this Lord Chesterfield praise Dr. Johnson's dictionary? So he uses words, he flatters him so much, thinking that the dictionary is dedicated to him. And he compares this Johnson to a dictator and to a pope, and he says this English language lacks a standard, and it was in a state of anarchy. And Dr. Johnson is chosen as a dictator who can dictate rules, standard to this language, so that the foreign learners as well as the native learners can learn the language very effectively. And then he says, whatever this Johnson says, or the standards that he set, people will follow. Like popes, like people who believes Pope's words. What Dr. Johnson says would be believed by all. And like people obey a dictator, those rules will be obeyed by the people. He praises this dictionary so much in these two articles that he has written. And he then says that he talks about, he brings in the analogy of a Tarpeian maid. So please note that also, note that point. This Tarpeian maid is a Roman maid, not really a princess, the daughter of a governor. And there was an incident when she betrayed her own country, her own place, and opened doors for the enemy soldiers, hoping to get the gold and silver bracelets and other ornaments worn by the soldiers. But when the doors were opened, these soldiers themselves, she was trampled over by these soldiers and she was killed. And the comparison that Dr. John, this Lord Chesterfield brings in here is that English language borrows from other language. Like there are lots of loan words, but he says that there should be something, you should protect the native spirit of the language. Otherwise, like the Tarpeian maid, the language would be trampled over by the foreign influence. And there is need for a standard because it's in a state of anarchy. And then this Dr. Johnson steps in like a dictator, like a pope, and gives a standard. And he says that if you want to buy the dictionary, you need to read the plan of the dictionary first. And he flattered Dr. Johnson. But next incident is how this Dr. Johnson receives these two articles. He was not moved, and he was rather indifferent to these two letters. This Dr. Johnson was actually a person who was so happy when somebody praised and appreciated him, somebody flattered him. But at this point of time, he was not moved by this courtly device used by Lord Chesterfield. And he despised all the honeyed verse. And then he writes a letter. So that is the next part, how he reacts to Lord Chesterfield's articles in the world. He writes a letter, and this copy was later obtained and was obtained by James Boswell. So this letter is written to this Lord Chesterfield, answer to the praises that Lord Chesterfield bestowed upon Dr. Johnson. So he writes a very long letter, and in that letter he very well states that he can't accept these encouragements and praise words which are used to praise him, because all through his life he was acquainted with neglect. There was nobody to support him, encourage him. And now that I'm alone, his wife is not with him, and he cannot enjoy these words and admiration. And he says, I have become numb and indifferent. And he brings in the analogy, the allusion of a shepherd in Virgil's Eclogue. This shepherd was in love with a maid, and he was not reciprocated love for so long. And finally, when he was given love, when his love was reciprocated, he was like a rock. He became indifferent to love. He cannot feel the warmth of love. Likewise, all these years, Dr. Johnson was all alone. After 7 years it was the incident which happened before, when he was asked to wait in the chamber of outside the chamber of Lord Chesterfield, and now it is almost 7 years have passed, and all these 7 years he was there were a lot of difficulties, and there was but nobody gave any assistance. There was no one word of encouragement or one smile of favor. And now that I have used to write without a patron, so he says, I don't want a patron. And then he brings in another analogy as well, about a drowning man. So there is a man who is about to drown, and people are looking at him on the shore, and he somehow struggles and reaches the shore. And when he reaches the shore, all these people trouble him with help. Lord Chesterfield's letters in that tabloid is like that, encumbering with help when everything is done. You know, after the person reaches the shore, there is no need for such help. So this is how he is held by Lord Chesterfield. And then he talks about, he kept on. So these are the three main things that this extract talks about Samuel Johnson's life, the incidents in Samuel Johnson's life. And throughout his life, this Samuel Johnson had this grudge towards this Lord Chesterfield, and in the satires that he wrote afterwards, the imitations of Juvenalian satires, again he made a point. He entered this. He pointed to this fact that a patron is also one of the ills that a scholar need to face in course of his life. So this is how these are the things that he talks about in the extract that we have to learn from life of Samuel Johnson. And then he criticizes whatever this Lord Chesterfield did afterwards. And when this man wrote a letter towards for his biological son, Dr. Johnson criticized those letters as well. And so that is how this extract ends. So if you're asked to write about this dictionary, so you have to summarize the letter written by the articles written by Lord Chesterfield, and how he praises the dictionary. And you can talk about, if you're asked to write about the grudge that he harbors against Lord Chesterfield, write about the reason, and write about how he behaved towards this Lord Chesterfield. So these are the main things that you need to understand from this essay. You have to write about, you can learn about how does Johnson expose the hypocrisy of Lord Chesterfield. You can write about the letter and the one illusion and the analogy that he uses. And on what grounds did Lord Chesterfield recommend Johnson's dictionary? You can talk about how the language is in the state of anarchy, and how there is a need for a standard, and how this Dr. Johnson is chosen for that arduous post of setting a standard. And then he says, this English language is wanting a grammar, a dictionary, a history for itself. And now it's all going to happen through Dr. Johnson's work. And that is how he praises the work of Dr. Johnson. So please read the essay once or twice. And if you have any doubts, please let me know. And there are a few names of other writers also mentioned here: Colley Cibber, George Littleton. Then there is this Mr. Langton. There are a few other publishers who are alluded to. Then about Virgil. Then one Dr. Warburton, who was very happy that Dr. Johnson reacted to Lord Chesterfield's letters, articles in that way. So please go through those things as well, those names of those writers as well. And there is this allusion to a Tarpeian maid, a Roman maid. Thank you.